G'day, wrestling mates. Welcome to a very special edition of If You See Kayfabe with your wrestling mate from down under, Southern Joe. Tonight, I'm about to throw to myself and a very special interview with one of the legends of Australian wrestling, Australia's first openly gay wrestler, a 23-year legend in the sport who's done it all with promoting and training and even wrote a book, which we will get into. I have previously interviewed this gentleman when I was the Australian correspondent of Falling Through the Ropes, but I felt like it deserved a do-over because while I was happy with the audio content, like as in the back and forward we had between each other, the quality of the video and the way it came out because of mainly my fault for not getting up onto Zoom or so forth. I use Skype. And if you see the actual video, the last 20 seconds, it's just a freeze of my face as I'm saying, see you later to Mr. Dunlop. So here comes the theme music. Away we go. And I hope you enjoy this very special interview with Ken the Dazzler Dunlop. Welcome back to If You See Kayfabe. So as you can see, we've got ourselves a very special guest, the one and only. He's done it all in Australian professional wrestling, Mr. Ken the Dazzler Dunlop. How you doing, Ken?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, doing really well. Doing really well. Excited to do this do-over. As I mentioned in my preamble, I have interviewed you before, but I'm going to treat this as a combination of a carry-on, but a fresh start from what we did previously.
No problems at all.
So you've done it all in wrestling as being a wrestler, you're a promoter as well, and a referee.
Referee, I've put the rings up, pulled the rings down, and done everything.
And you even became an author, doing your own biography, which was Dazzler Dunlop, Inside My Square Circle.
That's right. I've got the book right here through Shoreline Publishing Group.
Yep, and I'm going to put a link to that in the comments when I upload to YouTube, so people, if they want to buy it straight away, it's available on Amazon too. I've seen.
It is, yes. It's quite a few places. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to sort of sit around and talk to the older guys about stories about the wrestling days, and people kept saying to me, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book." And so when I retired from work, I sat down. It took me 2 years to write.
Mm-hmm. Is that just redrafting things, or just waiting for the inspiration to come or the thoughts to come?
All from memory, and that's the trouble. My short-term memory is not that great. I think that's due to 16 concussions during my career. But I'd sort of write for a little while, then I'd stop for a month, and then I'd just hear little conversations or someone would mention something, and I think, oh, yeah. And then I'd go to another bit, and I sat down with Ed Locke and Dan Leonard, and they sat down at home and interviewed me just for an hour. Mm-hmm. And we just discussed things generally. Then we went over it afterwards, and there was about 8 or 9 things in there that I hadn't put in the book. So all these other memories came back, and even now I still remember things I should have put in the book, but they've all gone now.
Well, you could always write a second book. I mean, Bischoff and JR are up to their third.
Yeah, it's not worth the hassle.
No, okay. And also, one of the biggest takeouts apart from your career is your journey through coming out as Australia's first openly gay wrestler. Now, as we record, we've just finished Pride Month. What are your thoughts on Pride Month?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, that would not have happened in my day, of course. And I think it's a great celebration, and everyone should be proud of how the world has changed.
Mm. Do you feel like there's still a way to go though?
But there's still a way to go. I mean, there was nowadays there are a lot of openly gay professional wrestlers in
Hmm.
Australia and across all around the world. But there's still a few stories you hear where people hold back because they're sort of scared they might not get a push or they might be used the wrong way.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So when you came out though, was the order like family, friends, the wrestlers, and then public? Is that the right order that you would have done it in?
No, it was weird. I didn't come out to my family till I was probably about 21. So
Hmm.
I moved to Sydney in 1980 from Melbourne because I started my career in Melbourne. I started learning when I was 16
Yep.
and at North Melbourne in Dovies, not Dovies gym, MV's gym. And I wrestled for the first 2 years in Melbourne, just through the clubs and shopping centres. Then I moved to Sydney, and I was sort of quite out when I moved to Sydney, and I still hadn't come out to my family. So it was about a year before I actually went down to Melbourne and came out to everyone.
Okay. Because in my thought process about thinking about your process there, because like in recent years with the advent of more podcasts and so forth, there's the fact that say Jim Barnett and Pat Patterson were gay, but mainly behind the scenes, like to the wrestling community. And was that like an inspiration for you to come out?
Not really. I just sort of just didn't want to lie.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted to be myself. I did tell one of my trainers in Melbourne, who I become great friends with, John Snyder,
Hmm.
and he was quite supportive. He actually just said to me at the time, "Keep it to yourself. Don't tell anyone."
All
So
right.
that first couple of years in Melbourne, I didn't hide. If someone asked me, I would always be honest with them, but
Yep.
I wasn't sort of open. Again, it's only when I moved to Sydney, I just felt free. I didn't know anybody. All I had was my grandparents in Sydney. And I mean, the first time I walked down Oxford Street, I was in shock because I saw people two guys holding hands, two girls holding hands. I thought, wow, what's going on here? And
Mm.
I just felt at home. And I was pretty much open pretty much straight away, but I still had to find the right time for the family.
Yeah. Because I mean, I I'm from the same sort of era as yourself. Because I just turned 60 recently, so I know from my side of things what it was like growing up because of what society would teach you about that sort of thing. And
Yeah,
I've had to have an education myself, and now I really embrace thinking that, well, if people are that way, then live and let live, and everyone be happy and find their love.
yeah. I mean, most of the guys were okay. Again, I didn't discuss it. I didn't flirt it. I wasn't loud and yelling and screaming and everything. But most of the guys knew, and some of those guys were really tough guys. Like Vic Murray was fantastic. I mean, he was a real tough little dude,
Mm.
and we drove in the car to a few shows together, and um, we discussed things. And I talked to him, told him, and he was fine. He was great, and
Mm.
he even invited me down to his farm. I think it was down halfway to Goulburn somewhere, and I went down there for a weekend and stayed, and it's just fantastic. But there was a few guys who gave me a real hard time. Like, unfortunately, I can't name them.
Mm.
Even in the book, I did name them in the book, but before the publishers publish the book, they get legal checks, of course,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and they said you can't name them because their families could sue you, type of thing.
Yeah, fair
So
enough.
I've written asshole one and asshole two. So there's
Fair
two
enough.
main guys. Yeah, there's two main guys who gave me an absolute hard time. one of them even attacked me in the dressing room. One day I was after the match. I was sitting on the floor. Obviously, I was tired from my match. I was undoing my boots, and he just come up from behind and grabbed me in a chicken wing and threatened to break my shoulder and break my arm. And he just no need for it, you know. And luckily, one of the other guys said, "Oh, leave him alone for God's sake," you know. And he said, "Oh, next time you effing bang out of use, I'll break your arm." You know. Again, it was just it's just. And there was the other guy who I had to wrestle him a lot of times, and he at the beginning when I was first young and inexperienced, he would absolutely beat the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Even one time, Roy Heffernan asked him to come down to the gym as a favour to Roy to train with us, and he did so begrudgingly. And just training, he whacked me so hard across the face, my nose and mouth were bleeding, so I had to stop training, and my jaw was sore for a couple of days. I couldn't even chew food. So I went and saw my doctor and had x-rays, and I had a hairline fracture of the jaw.
Oh, crikeys.
And so I mean, I didn't tell anybody. I just copped it and learned from it, and as I got more experience, I started fighting back.
Yeah. And I mean, I just looking up things because you like what is your actual height, if I could ask?
1.7 meters.
Okay, so that's about 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
I was 1 inch too short for the police force at the time.
Yeah,
when I was
because
about 7, I applied for the police, and I was 1 inch too short.
yeah, because they used to have the height restrictions, and now you can have all sorts of heights and that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remembered that back in the day. No, but just because you sort of stated in one of your interviews when you did your book that you said that you weren't like a prototypical wrestler, but in a way, your body type was that of like a classic 60s, 70s wrestler. Maybe in a sort of smaller stature, but still, because you had just that. What was it? Art Anderson called it about himself. I mean, you're not as big as Art Anderson, but he called it cultured bulk.
Right.
But so yeah, I know probably if you say went to America now, you'd probably almost forced to work out. But the stamina,
yeah.
I mean, you had your stamina. So did you do a lot of Broadways, like 1 hour Broadways?
Yeah, I did 3 1-hour matches. Quite a few. I did a couple of 50 minutes, 40 minutes. The average match in Sydney back in the early 80s was like 25 to 30 minutes. So you had to do it, and I had the stamina. Even when I was teaching guys, I taught for over 10 years. We trained for 3 hours, and I was there all the time. 3 hours, no worries at all. I couldn't run around the block, but I could wrestle for 3 hours, no worries.
But there's a different, from what I'm hearing, like a different podcast. There's like a different type of stamina that you need for wrestling, as opposed to say if you're at a football match or just running, as you say.
Yeah, and you learn your breathing techniques. That's your main thing, your breathing techniques, and they're all things that like Roy Heffernan taught me more. Again, the 5 guys I trained with in Melbourne were fantastic. There was Fred Berger, Sam Rossi, Jim Demaris, John Snyder, and Casey Miller. So I learned a lot from them, and I also trained with Mario Milano and George Guliobas for a few months.
Yeah.
So I learned all different styles and trained with all different people. And even when I was training in MBs in Melbourne, I trained with people like Johnny Doyle, Fat Dominic. So I trained with, again, all different styles of people and types of sizes of people. So it was good that way. But when I trained with Roy Heffernan, it was so much more precise, and you learn the breathing and all that sort of stuff. And it's just all little techniques, and that's where you can go and do your 20, 30 minutes, and you can wrestle someone you don't even know and not even worry about it.
And then, because that's in an era too where everything was called in the ring
Yeah, but I've
rather
got
than mapped
friends
out.
who used to go to, they'd go to every show and they would watch for people talking, and they said they never saw me talk in the ring.
Yeah, that's a. I've heard that with a few guys. So when you can do that, that's a good thing. But
Yeah,
did you ever get to a stage with someone that you wrestled with quite a bit that you'd be able to give a look or a nod that meant, well, do this move?
yeah. When I wrestled Lofty Pigford, when we were tag team partners off and on for over 15, 16 years, and we wrestled each other probably 80 or 90 times as well.
Hmm.
And we just knew we wouldn't even talk in the ring. We just knew what we were going to do. Our,
Yeah,
our connection was sensational.
because now your debut was back in August 11, 1978, against someone named
That's right.
Rob Magri.
That's right. Yes.
I
We
couldn't find
started.
anything on him.
No, he left the business. It didn't last long. I think he got a bit disillusioned because when we started training together, I think he was a little bit older than me. Like he was probably 2 years older. Like I was 16 when we started learning. He would have been maybe 19. It could have even been 20. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Um, and after we trained probably for 8 months, 9 months, they brought Jack Little down to the gym, and basically they just wanted one guy they could push. So Jack watched us train together
Hmm.
for probably half an hour or so. Then I worked with a few other guys, and then Rob worked with a few other guys. And then we did like a tag, just sort of. So we probably trained for like, again, 3 hours. And they said to Jack, who we're going to pick, and he went, Little Kenny. so, so I got the push pretty much straight away as the new up and coming young sort of kid, and Rob sort of had to sort of, he didn't get any luck type of that way, put it that
Yeah.
way, and I think he just got disillusioned.
Okay, but so your debut, as you're about to say, that was at Festival Hall, was it?
No, that was at the Thomastown RSL.
Okay.
I think it was Thomastown or Watsonia. Could
What's
be
only
Watsonia.
RSL? Yeah, because
Yeah,
I couldn't think of where the Thomastown. I'm in Melbourne. I'm
yeah.
originally from Sydney, so I've swapped places with you in a way. um, but okay, so did you ever? Were you too late for the TV era?
Yeah,
Did you ever?
I started in August 78 and I finished in December 78.
Okay, so you didn't
So I
get
just
to
went to
wrestle on
Christmas
telly.
break. No,
Ah, that's a shame. That's a shame. Um,
if it had gone another year, I would have been in.
yeah, for sure. And I was thinking back because I used to watch the wrestling every Saturday and Sunday at noon, and whenever they'd go to a shopping centre, because I was too young to go to shows and so forth, so I had to wait till I was at a shopping centre. But when I was thinking back to those names, people like the Australian wrestlers like Ron Miller, Larry O'Day, and yourself, Ken Dunlop. Whereas the US wrestlers all tend to have gimmick names like Brute Bernard or King Curtis, Big Bad John. Was this just a coincidence, or was there some sort of purposeful thing to disseminate between the US wrestlers and Australians?
I don't think it was a set thing, but most of the Australian guys used their own name. Like Roy Heffernan name was Roy, Kevin Medlin's name was his own name. Um, yeah, so most of the guys used their name or a variation. Like Larry O'Day was Larry Davies, so it was very close to his name.
Yeah, yeah. But apart from gimmicking a little bit by being the Dazzler or the Golden Boy for George
Yeah,
Barnes. Yeah.
well,
Um,
Roy Heffernan gave me the name Dazzler in probably the early 80s. He gave Wayne Lofty Pickford because he obviously worked with Lofty Bloomfield in England.
Okay.
And he just picked Dazzler for me, and it matched my personality.
Yeah, because you always were that with the cape, the very colourful cape and all glittery. So
Yeah,
that's
well, I
it.
sort of I love that era as well. So that's where it was, and that's where it's sad today. Most of the guys don't make an effort today. I mean, quite a few do, but I can't stand seeing someone come out in bloody gym shoes and jeans and a
Yeah,
t-shirt. That's so lazy, just lazy and disgusting.
I think maybe
Make an effort.
if it's one guy and that's his gimmick, but not when a whole bunch of them do. Because also there was a time when a lot of them would come out with straggly long black hair and all greased up and wet, and they all
Yeah,
half a dozen of them looked the same.
yeah.
Did you ever look to go to somewhere like Memphis, like George Barnes did?
We we actually had a tour lined up for Stampede in Canada
Mm-hmm.
to
You
train
are.
with Stu Hart.
Yeah.
Um, we were booked to go for 3 months, and we booked it like 6 months earlier because Roy Heffernan had all these amazing contacts, and like he'd sit there and he'd say, "Oh, we'll ring Stu Hart," and we just ring and talk to him. I spoke to people like Lou Thez, Red Bastine. I spoke to JJ Dillon, all these different people over the phone. And I'm thinking, wow, and Giant Bubba in Japan, I spoke to him. But Roy would ring them up, and Roy set us up for Stu Hart. And it was about 2 or 3 weeks before we were supposed to go. Um, I got a call from Bruce Hart saying they'd sold the business to Vince and they were
I
closing down. The deal was
oh,
off.
because that would have
So
been such a good tour.
if I'd gone, I'd never have come back. I don't think I'd ever come back. I would have
Okay.
stayed there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would have obviously tried America. But I'm glad I didn't, because when I look at all these shows, the telltale stories of territories and that, it was pretty disgusting back then, the wrestling. Like the older guys would beat the shit out of the young guys. They would treat them like crap in the dressing room, all the drug stories, all the booze stories.
Yeah.
When you and these people are proud of it. They laugh about it, think it's funny. It's pretty disgusting what happened. And being gay in that time too, I think it would have been an issue and a problem.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's because you did go to the UK. You went to the UK, and I remember you talking. Oh,
Yes,
you there?
yes, we have. Yeah,
Yeah. So that, and I remember when we had our previous interview, you talked about working with Big Daddy, and that
that
was
was
a bit.
the low light of my career. That was the most disgusting match. Um, I can't remember. I had a partner, an English partner, and it was Big Daddy and his nephew Scott. Now Scott was a lovely guy, and him and I got on fantastic.
Hmm.
And he was actually our driver for the whole tour we were there. So he'd just pick us up every day and just drive us to the shows. But it was just a comedy. Like it was, I think it was five 3-minute rounds. I think it was supposed to go,
They
and
did
it
the
was
round
just
thing.
comedy. And Big Daddy's telling us all this stuff, and I'm going, no, I'm not doing that. And something else, I said, I'm not doing that. And he had during one of the rounds, he had like a bucket in the corner, and he hit the other guy with the bucket, and he took a bump over the top rope, and he wanted to hit me with the bucket. And I said, look, I'm not doing that shit. I said, I'm not a freaking clown. And so the other guy was going to do all the spots with Daddy, and I was going to do all the spots with Scott. And unfortunately, I mean, again, Scott was a lovely guy, but he was very limited in his wrestling ability. He obviously only got the push because he was Big Daddy's nephew.
Yeah, the nepotism
And
thing.
I just took over straight away because I thought, well, it's not going to work. So I just took over, and I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't even look at Big Daddy. And Big Daddy's leaning over the rope and he's going, you're fucking the daddy tag, you're fucking the daddy tag. So when I tag out to the other guy, he'd do his shit with Big Daddy, and he come at me a couple of times. I just jumped off, turned my back to him. I thought, oh, you're a clown. And when
Yeah.
I come back, he's yelling at me in the dressing room, and he's saying, "You'll never work in the daddy tag again." I said, "Oh, thank you." It was a blessing.
That's a beauty. So, who would be the biggest names that you've worked with, either against or in a tag with?
I've tagged with Mario Milano, Ron Miller, Jack Claiborne, Kevin Martin. I wrestled Kevin Martin numerous times, and he's a sensational person.
Yeah, he was
Ken
he was
Medlin, of
great.
course. Yeah, Ken Medlin. I've wrestled
Hmm.
Ken probably the most out of everybody, probably about 90 to 100 times.
Mm.
And I mean, at the first, I was really scared because he was such a legend, and he was my favourite when I was a kid, like 13, going to Festival Hall. He was, to me, him and Johnny Gray were the best two wrestlers I've ever seen. And so to get to work with people like that, um, yeah, I wrestled George Barnes a lot, Brett Small, Kid Hardy, all names from the TV. So I
Yeah,
wrestled with the midgets, Vic Murray, Bobby Reagan. So all different types of styles. Andy Harpus, Mario Marino. And Mario Marino is a guy who sadly gets forgotten, but he was a great worker. You know, he was a big guy at first, and him and Andy Harpus were a tag team. And me and Lofty, when we started in the early 80s as a team, we wrestled them probably 30 or 40 times, and it was just sensational. And then he lost a lot of weight. And in 85, I think it was when we did the tour with the Americans, he wrestled as Zorro Italiano.
okay.
And I wrestled him at the Festival Hall 2 or 3 times. And they were sensational matches with him. It was fantastic.
So that's a gap in my fandom because when it came off TV, apart from some shopping centre stuff, I didn't really see anything until they started bringing out stuff from America with the WrestleMania onwards, and they were showing
Right. Okay.
superstars on Channel 10. Yeah, you try
Yeah.
and keep up because there's no such thing as the internet back then. So it
No,
wasn't
of
like,
course not. Yeah.
and there wasn't. Well, I don't think there was even an Australian wrestling magazine. If there was, wasn't very well advertised. So it was hard
Yeah,
to
not
sort of.
then. And it was hard to get work overseas back then because, again, no internet. You had to get a video, and you had to go to a converter shop and get it converted to either English or American or Canadian,
Yeah,
um, and get all your photos, post them all off. I must have posted oh, 30 to everybody, and I think we got 5 responses. Um, and again, it was just so hard. You know, and even like as with Japan, we tried Japan. There was only 2 promotions in Japan at the time, and I had the letter from Roy Heffernan as a reference, and
hmm
also Lou Thez, because when I'd spoken to Lou Thez a couple of times, he gave me his address, and I actually sent him a copy of our video, which had
hmm
probably 4 or 5 single matches of mine, and then 3 or 4 tag matches with Lofty. And he actually wrote us a reference for Barbara as well. And when we got to speak to Barbara on the phone, um, they only took in 16 foreign wrestlers per year.
Oh, right.
And, and they'd already had 2 years planned. And he said, we'll put you on the list. And of course, we never got the call. When now there's probably 40 or 50 promotions,
Yeah,
anyone could just fly over to get work on a show. So again, it's just so much easier now. And again, with the internet, they can just send a link to their matches, send it off, and Bob's your uncle. But it just was so much harder back then.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because also too, because there was quite a few Americans that liked the lighter schedule because there was people like your Stan Hansons and Doctor Deaths and Bruiser Brody. They were regulars in Japan because they could make twice as much as what they did in America and have half the
Yeah,
schedule.
yeah. Yeah, so it's very
Right.
hard to get a break in those places.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now the timer is coming up. So what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back. I'll send you another link. So, folks,
Okay, yep.
we're going to come back and have a bit more of a chat with Ken the Dazzler Dunlop. All right, so we're back with the second part of our interview with Ken the Dazzler Dunlop, the guy who's done it all in professional wrestling. Now, you retired in 2000 and at the age of 40, which by today's standards seems a bit young. What was the reason for retiring at that time?
Had a heart attack. So
Oh,
um, that scared the living shit out of me, and I might have overreacted, but yeah, it just scared me. Like I was pretty healthy, and yeah, just one night I remember it was July 15th. I can't, because it was my brother's birthday, and I'd gone to bed and I woke up about 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, and I thought, this is it, I've gone. Um, I didn't, I was stupid. I didn't call an ambulance. I just tried doing some deep breathing because, again, things that you learn from the wrestling. And I took some deep breaths, sat down and tried to stretch my body. I finally fell back asleep. I went to work the next day as normal, and everyone said, God, what happened to you? You look like shit. And so I waited till 9 o'clock when the doctor opened across the road from where I worked. And I went over there and he sent me straight to Prince of Wales Hospital. And yeah, they said, you've had a heart attack. And yeah, so again, I sort of, I probably overreacted a little bit. I mean, again,
mm,
it just scares you. It scares the shit out of you. But
yeah.
I stopped training. I gave up training straight away because I was still training 2 nights a week at that time. And I was promoting, and I rang up my partners and said, that's it, I'm out. So within a month, I was out of the business.
I
And
s- oh,
yeah, I blame the business for it. And again, so I didn't watch any wrestling from 2000 to 2006. I wanted nothing to do with wrestling at all. I just totally ignored everything. And now I'm back in love with it.
okay, you you just went cold turkey with everything.
Yep. I think I just overreacted, but again, it's just a pretty frightening thing to go through at that age because I was pretty fit and healthy.
Yeah. Did they Did the medical people attribute it to anything?
No, I mean, I've got a very bad family history
Okay.
of heart. And even now, I'm actually, you can probably see a little ladybug on my chest.
Yep.
I'm, I'm actually wearing a heart monitor for a month. So I'm still having certain issues with my heart. I've got a really slow pulse rate. My pulse rate's only averages about 40, where it should be 70 or 80.
Oh, okay. It could
And I
be
have
like
these,
a rhythm thing. Because I
yeah,
actually had back in 2016, I had open heart surgery. I was on the
oh,
table
okay, right,
I was on the table for 13 hours, and
right,
for about half an hour to an hour of that, my heart was actually out of my body while they were working
right,
on it and keeping me alive with a machine.
yeah,
And then soon after that, I actually had a thing called a DCR where they put you under for about 20 minutes and they electric shock you back into rhythm.
yeah. Yeah,
So, yeah,
they're
so,
talking about putting a pacemaker in, but he wants me to try and hold off as long as I can. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so we'll see. See this, when I finish this on Friday, it's been a month, and then I send it back to them, and then they takes 3 weeks to get all the results. So I'll know by the end of July what their plans are.
Because you're what, 61 or 62?
63, yeah.
63. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah,
just 3 years older than me. So yeah. So
yeah.
and so your heart issues back then, the more serious stuff has happened later on, or that was the
Yeah,
worst
I mean,
one.
that was probably the worst. I've had lots of issues, and since I've retired from wrestling, I've had over 20 surgeries, and little things like I've had both my knees replaced. I've had operations on my ankle, my foot, both my shoulders have been reconstructed. One shoulder twice, and I've only just discovered only last week that I need an ankle replacement on my right ankle.
Oh,
And I need a right hip replacement. So all these things, they've told me to try and wait till I'm at least 65. So I've still got
yeah,
2 years to go to try and get them, because with the hips that they last a long time, but the ankles only last 10 years. So they want me to sort of try and hold off as long as I can before I do it. But I have so much trouble with my feet, and um, occasionally when I'm really bad, I have to use a walking stick.
oh,
Um,
okay,
but other times I've got at the moment I'm fine. I'm fantastic. So
yeah,
just depends on the different days. I've got a nerve damage in my neck. Again, it's all from the wrestling,
yeah.
which I need an operation. But again, he said try and hold off as long as possible. I had a funny thing with my eyes about quite a while ago now. I had this lump come up in one of my eyes, and I went to the specialist, and they said you need surgery, and they said that's from head traumas. Have you ever had a head trauma?
Uh
And I
oh,
said, well, I've had about 6 7 concussions. But
that would
even
do it.
though it was so long ago, that lump, he said, you've either banged your head or even sneezed heavily, and it's burst this thing in my eye. And
Oh,
that was from the wrestling, yeah. So I had to have an operation on both eyes because the lump was in both eyes, but only one had ruptured. So yeah, so it's just all these little things now, all these years later,
and
that
it's also
affect
because
me.
yeah, sorry, it's also because back in the day, wrestlers didn't really wear like elbow pads and knee pads. Like it's almost a prerequisite. Most of the wrestlers these days wear them. And
Yeah, I
you,
mean, and don't forget that you look at the WE now and AEW and all those, they've all got mats around the ring. I mean, a 2 inch thick mattress around the ring outside. We used to take bumps over the top rope on the concrete floors.
mm,
You know, I've taken backdrops over the top rope onto the concrete floor, and um, where today they're all so much more protected. I mean, still
yeah,
they do more high flying, dangerous stuff today, which is when you look at some of it, it's incredible.
mm.
But again, they're not falling on the concrete floors where we thought we were invincible. Like you'd get hurt in a match and you just keep going. You know,
How
you
often
couldn't give
how
up. You'd have to keep going.
how often were you out of action because of something happened in the ring?
Oh, gee. Sometimes for months at a time, sometimes 2 or 3 months.
Hmm.
Um, I had my first knee surgery in '84, and I was out then for probably 2 or 3 months. But again, I
Hmm.
was silly then because because you're young, you think, okay, I had done it on the 1st of December because in December in Sydney, wrestling usually finished at, say, about the 10th of December and wouldn't start basically till February.
Hmm.
So I thought if I had the operation on the 1st of December, I can go back in the ring 1st of February. But there was a show at, it was the Marrickville Olympic Soccer Club, and Steve Ackman was the promoter, and I'd gone along to see the boys. I was on crutches. I still had the knee bandaged up. I still had the stitches in my knee. And two guys hadn't turned up. So Rackman said to the first guys, go longer and longer. Well, the first match, they ended up finishing in 10 minutes because one of them, I think he broke his thumb or dislocated his
Oh,
thumb.
oh, geez.
And Rackman knew I was there. I'd just gone along to have a Christmas drink with the boys type of thing. And he called me backstage. He said, can you do the main event, do the tag? I said, I'm still on crutches. I can't, my leg's still bandaged up. He said, oh, they won't know. And I drove the car. And I always had my gear in the car. You always had your gear.
Always, yeah.
And
That's old school.
foolishly, yeah, I agreed to do the tag. And Lofty had to basically put my clothes on for me because I couldn't bend down. I couldn't do anything. And we did a 35-minute tag team match with Andy Harper and Mario Marino. And they looked after me sensationally. And no one in the crowd noticed. So it was incredible.
Jeepers. Did it do any further damage to your knees or just
I
status
did
quo?
tear the stitches. When I told my doctor what I'd done, he blew shit out of me. He said, "You idiot."
Oh,
But
no.
even like, one time I did a tag match at Manly, and in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the match, I really badly sprained my ankle. Just coming off the top rope with a double chop type of thing. But again, the adrenaline keeps you going, and we had to go 40 minutes. So I did the 40 minutes, but then after the match, I couldn't get my boot off because my foot had swollen that much. And the next day, I had to go to the hospital and get X-rays and scans, and I was on crutches for 2 weeks. So another time I was wrestling Mario Marino, and as I said, Mario was a big guy. He was probably 6'8", and he would have been at the time maybe 20 stone, and I was probably 13 stone. And he gave me a power slam. And unfortunately, he lost his balance, so his full weight came down on me. And I didn't realise at the time, but I'd cracked 2 ribs and punctured my lung.
Oh, wonderful. Jeez.
You know, he pinned me like 1-2, but he pulled me up. That's how originally it was planned to go. And I'm trying to tell the referee that I was stuffed, finish it up. He gave me another power slam.
Oh, no.
But I didn't say nothing. I just went home, had a shower, went to the hospital, and I was in hospital for, I think, 7 or 8 days. They said you punctured your lung, and they had to patch my lung up, and so I was out then for, again, a couple of months. So I probably missed, overall, I probably missed a couple of years from all my different injuries.
Okay. But that's a couple of years out of 23 years. Okay, it's a small percentage, 10%.
Yeah.
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
So were you ever full-time in the business?
No one could. The money just wasn't there. Like, even though at the time, I think the mid to late 80s, we were doing like 10, sometimes 20 shows a month. You couldn't live on it because it wasn't, again, it's not guaranteed every time. So, and if you're injured, you're out. So all of us had full-time jobs. I was working 6 days a week at a hardware shop, and I was doing bar work a couple of nights a week. I was doing security work 1 or 2 nights a week. I was teaching 2 nights a week, and then wrestling. So I had a really full schedule the whole time, and I don't know how I did it, but when I was doing the security work, I'd start at 7 o'clock at night, work till 1 in the morning, then be at work the next morning at 7 o'clock.
Oh, jeepers.
So, and then I'd work all day, and then I'd go off and do wrestling shows, come back at, say, 10 o'clock. Sometimes I'd have to go and do security work or bar work after I'd finished wrestling shows as well. So, and even back in the day, on a Sunday, we'd do 2 or 3 shows in one day.
Yeah.
So,
matinees of that.
Yeah, there was one time we did Blacktown Workers at 11 o'clock. I think it was Reesby Workers at 2 o'clock. And then I think it was Canterbury Hurlston Park at 5 o'clock. So, and there was one Sunday week we did 4. We did Paddington RSL at 7 o'clock. So, and the guys today can't believe we did that. And just, and again, just sometimes you're driving to and from each show. There was one time we did, lucky enough, they were pretty close together. I'd done, I said, like Ingleburn, then Canterbury Hurlston Park, and Rackman had all 3 shows were Rackman shows. So then you had West League Club, and that wasn't too far away from Canterbury Hillston Park. So I was on the main event at Canterbury, then I was on the second match at the next show. So it was 4 o'clock show and a 6 o'clock show. So when I got there, the first match had to go till they actually saw me walk in.
Yeah.
So they went about 25 minutes. As soon as I got down the auditorium and come down towards the dressing room, they spotted me and they went boom, straight to their finish. Well, by the time I got in the dressing room, got my tracksuit off, my music started.
Oh,
So I had to go in the ring. I didn't know who I was wrestling. I didn't know what was going on.
You would have known who was going over.
Yeah, so it's just the referee. When I got to the ring, he said, you have to do 20 minutes and you're going over. So again, everything had to be called. I thought his music started. I didn't know who I was working with. So
because they
were fun times.
Yeah, no, because in some of the territory stuff that you hear with the American stuff, that actually schedule it so you would be you'd be the other way around, where you'd be second show or second match on the first show, so you had enough time to get to a main event. Especially because in some of those the distance between the shows were wider, because at least, I mean, Canterbury, Lidcombe, and Ingleburne's not too bad. I mean, if the two shows were close enough, like North Sydney to Southwest, you might have struggled.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. But that's one good thing back then, where you had Steve Rackman was the main promoter. Roy Heffernan was probably the second top one, and then you had Larry O'Day and Ron Miller, and then Johnny Chum did some shows as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they all worked together because they knew Friday nights there's always probably 2 shows every Friday night, and every Sunday there's always 2 or 3 different shows with different promoters. So Rackman would ring Roy and say, "Who are you using?" And then they'd work out who they wanted. And because at the time me and Wayne were sort of new guys, they wanted us. And obviously we were cheaper than paying the experienced guys, so they wanted us. So they'd work out together, where I can't work out why promotions today can't work together. If there's a couple of shows, bring each other up and say, "Look, I'm using A, B, C, D. Are you using them? And can we work something out?" It's not hard. It's not hard to work out. Even when I promoted, I encouraged all my boys to work for everybody. And I helped them get shows with other people.
Because there wouldn't be enough people, there wouldn't be enough talent to be exclusive to 3 or 4 promotions in Australia.
Well,
I mean, now maybe because there are quite a few wrestlers going around, but I see some of the same wrestlers on different rosters, especially if it's within one state.
Yeah, but there's like 12 promotions in Sydney, and again, I'm out of the business. I don't know 100%, but I've heard from other people that some of the promotions who only have 1 show a month say to the guys they're training, "You can't work for anybody else. You've got to work for us only." That's not fair to the guys, because they could be out getting experience and working for other people, and so I think there's got to be more coercion and more working with each other.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, if that if that once a month was once a night, then maybe they've got a sort of thing to say, well, I can give you enough work to sustain you, be exclusive to me. But because I said down here in Melbourne with Mayhem and Melbourne City Wrestling and PCW and a couple others that don't come to mind, but a lot of them have very similar rosters.
Well, OPW is starting huge in Melbourne now.
Yeah.
They're the ones who did Ballarat, they did Wagga Wagga. They've got a show next week at Thornbury, I think. And then they're doing Ballarat again in August as well, bringing out all the hands.
Well, I went to Starcast.
They seem to have their heads screwed on right.
Yeah, no, they're doing it, and they're bringing some of the stuff. I mean, Starcast, they had Shelton Benjamin, Great Carly. Well, Great Carly was just like an attraction. He did wrestle, but they had Shelton Benjamin, and then Robbie Eagles, who was just on AEW Collision this past weekend,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
really surprised me. I want to get a hold of that because I don't have Triller TV, but I want to see if there's a YouTube clip for that. I'd like to see how he went and
Oh, it
how
will
the
be.
American.
Yeah.
You saw it, did you?
Not yet. No, but it'll be on YouTube soon, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, because they do put little snippets there, and I'd be interested to see how the American commentators put them over as well, because
Yeah. But
Shane Haste, yeah, so
yeah,
it was good. What do you think of today's wrestling overall?
it's different. So they do a lot more high flying, dangerous stuff.
Yeah,
But the actual wrestling side of it, the psychology side, to me is nowhere near as good as it was back in the day. They don't tell the stories like tag teams. They don't build up the team. They don't get the hot tag. I mean, again, some do, but a lot don't. And a lot of the stuff just looks too choreographed.
yeah.
I mean,
Was
I
that?
know, I know the guys today, they planned every second of the match where we never did that. Like if I was doing 30 minutes with you, we'd plan a quick start, a spot each in the middle, and the finish. The rest you just call in the ring. I don't think they can
You
do that today.
and you listen to the crowd to see what they're reacting
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you can get by without doing anything. If you can
Mm.
work the crowd, I mean, again, that ability is lost, unfortunately. And because they've also like there was a AEW show, a pay per view on the weekend. They had 15 matches.
Mm.
Um, it doesn't give guys time to tell a story in a match. Like
Mm.
if you've got a 3 hour show and you've got 15 matches, they're not getting much time, especially because they do all the other crap, all the talk. And that's one thing I hate. I hate all the bloody talk. It's okay
Yeah.
to do a quick 1 minute interview after a match, like Jack Little used to do with King Curtis or whatever. It'd just be 1 minute and you can get out. Now
Mm.
every single match they come out and they blah 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 and bullshit on, and it actually gives me the shits. And I just if I'm watching something, I just jump it and
Fast
fast
forward.
forward it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. No, that's I agree with that, and I mean that's why I like a throwback team like FTR. FTR are quite good because they're like a throwback to like your Midnight Express and Talia and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
My personally my all time favorite tag teams the Road Warriors. They were
right.
believable. They were believable because even when they wrestled against a team like the Natural Disasters, who are bigger and thicker and taller than them, you still thought that LOD was more intimidating.
Yeah.
I mean, and I, I remember when we were talking on that last interview, I was talking to you about that SBS interview and how you talked about how you loved when the crowd hated you and you fed off that. And I think
Oh, definitely.
that's something that very few I think only MJF and a couple of others feed off that sort of Paul Heyman too feed off that sort of thing where the crowd's booing them and hating them and feeding off that.
Well, I did a match once, and I can't remember who my opponent was. That was at one of the clubs. I was on the first match. We had so much heat with the crowd, and I did all the coward stuff, like I jump in, jump out, and all that sort of bullshit. And they'd called 5 minute mark. We hadn't even locked up, and we had so much heat from the crowd. And Bobby Burns was the referee. He said, "You got to do something." I said, "Listen to him."
Yeah,
Again, you just work
exactly.
it out. When we got in, of course, I let the baby face throw me around like a freaking rag doll for 5 minutes, and and then I cowered it out again, and that sort of stuff. And again, it's just all psychology, and that's something which is not there today. You can't do that. I said every match is planned to the second, and
Yeah.
every match probably goes 5 minutes. So you can't tell a story in 5 minutes. That's where I
No.
think it's got to make a good match. Like even today, if WE and AEW, they're 3-hour TV shows, there's less than an hour of wrestling
Yep.
out of
Especially
3 hour
on Raw
shows.
and
It's all
SmackDown.
talk and all. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pathetic. Put on 1 30-minute match. They got talented guys who could do that, like AJ Styles and that Nakamura. Put those sort of guys on. Let them do a 30-minute match.
Yeah.
You know, no commercials, no talk, no bullshit, no interference. Because every match, every show, every match has someone run in. Just do a clean finish. Have us tell a story. It's even if they just did it once every second week, it'd be fantastic to see real wrestling.
They can't do those sort of on their regular Raw and SmackDown shows because the American TVs are looking for commercials every 5 or 6 minutes. They're looking for a commercial block, so it might be able to do something on a pay-per-view.
You can still continue the match on, and when the commercial breaks on, the guys go into the rest holds
Yeah,
or do very little. They know when the time's on. I've seen that happen before. Then
yeah.
cut away to a commercial and come back. They could do that easily enough. Again, if you're experienced enough and you've got the know-how and the knowledge, you can do it easily.
Well, they used to do that.
I'd love to get in there with AEW because Tony Khan, to me, he's got so many sensational workers there. He doesn't know what to do with them.
Yeah,
And he needs a good booker. Someone who come in who's not affiliated with anybody, so no one's doing favours for a friend. Come in, look at everybody, interview, like a booker comes in, talk to every single person. What are their goals? What are their ambitions? What do they want to do? Then you can sit down and work out in your head, watch everyone for a couple of weeks, and then you can plot your storylines.
yeah,
Not just now, it's a shambles. Like you get 6 guys in, then they're not on TV for 3 weeks. Then they've got someone else coming in. Then they've got someone else coming in. So
yeah.
there's no continuation. So I'd love the chance to go to AEW as a booker. For 2 years I'd do it and then out. But
Yeah.
just set things up. That'd be sensational.
Well, I actually even did one of my previous episodes was about how to fix AEW, just from someone who's a 50+ year fan, and a lot of it was about the booking, and also just about I also wrote an article for pwdownunder.com, which is the same sort of thing, but I talked about for the international people the pub test. So any story that you put out there has to pass a pub test because a lot of stories that they put out there now, and both WWE and AEW are guilty of it, they put out stories that just don't make sense. And people are saying,
Yeah.
well, what is this? What the hell is this? Because at least if you want to be a fantasy, no problems, but have a fantasy that people actually can believe in. Because I mean, okay, you had back you had back you even in the old World Championship Wrestling days in Australia, you had a Brute Bernard that used to walk around go whoa, 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 like that.
Yeah.
But he made it believable that you thought I better stay out of this guy's way. Same with Bruiser
Yeah.
Brody. Bruiser Brody, they talked about him being a wild man and he'll flip things over and that, but behind the scenes, he was supposed to be the nicest man.
He was a bit flippy, apparently in '85, because when I was doing that tour in Melbourne with Young Bloods and the Cuban Assassin,
Yep.
because I was based in Melbourne for that, so I was down there for 3 months. During that time, Miller and O'Day brought out Hanson and Brody. Now, if I was still in Sydney, I would have been on those shows, which I would have loved because Brody was one of my all-time favourites. But apparently in the dressing room at South Sydney, he knocked out Kevin Martin in the dressing
Oh,
rooms. Yeah,
okay.
so he clobbered him with a chair, knocked him out cold. So I
Oh,
don't know what happened. I don't know the lead up to it, but yeah, I heard all that, and I'd love to have been involved with those shows. Because I did the other tours with O'Day and Miller with Andre the Giant, Killer Khan, and they were just sensational. And Don Morocco, I did a couple of tours with Don Morocco, and they were fantastic.
yeah. Because Bruiser Brody, his widow was Australian.
Yeah, I'm
Barbara
friends with her
Goodish.
on Facebook. Yeah, I'm friends with her on Facebook.
Okay.
But it's funny, the time at the first show I'd done, which Andre was on, there was a Kerry Brown or Carl Brown from Canada and Don Morocco. And I was on the first match with Ken Medlin.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry O'Day came up to us and said, just do your normal 20-minute match, but nothing off the top rope, nothing outside, just do a plain match. And I was thinking, oh, shit. Because me and Ken had worked at that stage probably 30 or 40 times together, and we had a really good routine. And we hardly ever talked. We just knew what room situations we had, what stories we had. And I said to Ken, what are we going to do? He said, fuck 'em, we'll do everything. So we went out there and we were just fly, taking all the bumps, do our normal stuff, sensational match. As I was walking out back to the dressing room, there was Don Morocco and Andre the Giant. They'd been watching our match.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh. And they both shook my hand, patted me on the back, said, oh, fantastic match, fantastic match. I thought, oh, that's really good. I was so pleased, you know. When we walked in, Larry O'Day's face was red.
Oh,
He's going,
dear.
you fucking assholes, how can we follow that? And Medlin just said, if you can't follow that, you shouldn't be on the program.
Yeah, true.
So,
That's
and we had 5 nights in a row doing shows with them, and I was supposed to work with Medlin on all of them. They changed it straight away.
oh.
So I forget who I worked with the next couple of nights, but yeah. And then at the end, Larry sacked me for 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Oh, dear. Oh,
So
Christ.
then after about a month, Ron Miller rang me up, and because Larry was, I suppose he was the main booker at the time, but he was one who always caused the angst. And then Ron would come behind and patch things up. And yeah, Ron said, oh, mate, you're right for South next week? I said, yeah, I'll be there. And then it was about, so I sacked for about a month just for doing a good match.
Yeah, well, if that's the worst thing to get sacked for, then you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
You're doing pretty good. All right. Well, this has been really fun. It's almost like we should get together every now and then and go through a whole bunch more stories
Yeah,
because
I'm always available.
these are fun. And I tell you what, I wish I had contacts with some of the others. Like Steve Rackman looks like he'd be an interesting cat because he's not only done the wrestling and the promoting, but the acting as well.
He's
He's
down in Melbourne. He lives in Docklands, but he's not very well health-wise.
oh, okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think I've only heard, I'm not sure, but I've heard he's got dementia, so I'm not sure.
All right.
Yeah, there's a couple of the old guys that have got dementia, and sadly, quite a few have passed away. But yeah, Ron Miller wants nothing to do with wrestling anymore. He lives on the Gold Coast. Wants nothing to do with wrestling.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I mean, some folks sort of get that way with that because I suppose like anything, there's the good times, there's the bad times, and if the bad times outweigh the good, then what can you do?
Yeah, and Kenny
But
Medlin passed away last year as well.
yes, yeah, I remember that. I remember
And
that.
it's strange. The week before he passed away, a guy who wrestles in Queensland by the name of Winnie Medlin contacted me and he said, do you know Ken Medlin? I said, yes. And he said, have you got his details? And I didn't have his details anymore because we'd lost touch a long time ago. And so I tried digging around to find him. And the week after, he passed away.
Oh.
So, yeah, and now that Winnie, who's given up wrestling, now has gone into fighting, boxing. So,
Okay.
I think at least he's got in touch with Ken's daughter, who I'm in touch with occasionally now as well.
Mm-hmm. All right then, Ken.
So
Dazzler, we're going to do this.
one
Yes.
the book.
Yep.
And again, it's through Shoreline Publishing Group.
Is that the best place to get it, or is Amazon still pretty good too?
Shoreline's better for me because I get more money out of them.
Then that's the only link I'll put down when I cut up this. I won't be cutting up the video, but I'll add a couple of little bits and pieces. Seeing that little black part between us,
Yeah.
I'll put I'll be putting in some little graphics and so forth, and in the comment section, I'll whack in the Shoreline Publishing thing because I've got that link up on my computer at the moment.
Yeah.
And
all right, pleasure.
look after that.
Anytime,
So it's been really great. Yeah.
Just give us a call.
No worries. It's been great talking to you. So, folks, this has been If You See Kayfabe with Ken the Dazzler Dunlop, and this is Uru.